Hello, everyone. This is Nordin Taj, and I have an excellent panelist today to talk about the key topic that every organization right now is struggling with is the culture change to be successful in their digital transformation. So before I start with our excellent panelist, I would like to give you a context around this topic. As you know, digital transformation is not about technology. It's about transitioning organization to think differently and works towards moving everyone in organization from point A to point B. The reality is the strategy, capabilities, culture, and technology needs to be aligned to be successful. Culture plays a unique role in every organization, and culture attracts world-class talent, culture creates alignment, and culture affects performance. So what are companies getting wrong today? So a lot of decisions are being made in context of what companies have been doing in the past, not considering what technologies are moving fast, and having same bureaucracy that used to exist will become a bottleneck to digital transformation. Organization needs to be committed and sustain their digital journey despite a lot of external pressure or internal pressure. So with that, we will start with our panel discussion, and I would probably like first to have our panelists introduce themselves. So I will go to first, Elisabetta. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Elisabetta Purlalli. I've been heading the change management of ENI, and I'm a senior vice president, having a 20 years experience mainly in gas and LNG, so knowing the business.
Thanks, Elisabetta. Now we go to David.
Yes, thank you, Nordin. Hi to everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be here. I'm David Barreales Garcia. I'm working for CEPSA, and currently I'm the head of change management and digital capabilities for digital transformation. My main experience was in oil and gas. I was in another business like pharma or banking, but the last 8 years I'm focusing in oil and gas and lately in digital transformation.
Thanks, David and Julia.
Hi, I'm Julia Benbow. I work at OMV and have a role in change management and digital transformation. And I persuaded last year some very generous people to give me a job in our IT and business consulting team, having spent a large part of my career in human resources, particularly in learning and development. So had built a digital academy in OMV and then have moved to help kind of engage people around change and digital change in Downstream.
Thanks, Julia. Elgin?
Hi, everyone. Elgin Suggs. I work with McDermott International. I am leading our digital culture and change management program for our digital and analytics group. I'm super excited to be here. I have a passion for people and culture. I spent most of my career in working projects as an electrical engineer and recently transitioned into this new role where I am leading change management and digital culture initiatives for McDermott.
Thanks, Elgin. And last but not the least, Inge Wild.
Hi all. My name is Inge Wild. I'm talking to you from Munich today, and I'm very excited to be here today. Since more than 6 years, I'm now working for Linde, and I was working before with a startup and with Microsoft and also a mid-scale company. Now I'm here as a program manager in the digitalization team, helping the company with on its transformation pathway. And I'm really curious about the panel discussion today.
Thank you. And with that, we can start our panel discussion, and I'll start with a question, and at the end probably we'll have some time for audience to send their questions, and we'll try to cover as much as possible. So every digital transformation, the big step, every company is looking for steps to be successful. So I will have a question for Elisabetta or Elgin. Any one of you can answer. What are the essential steps required to ensure that your change initiative is successful? What's your experience?
I would say that the essential step, the real first essential step is involving people and involving really a broad audience. In addition to that is to involve them, we need to listen to them carefully. So, of course, the target is the digital transformation. So we want that people understand and becomes aware about their fundamental role, because if they don't feel the importance of their role in giving their opinion with respect to the needs, and also on how the change management path is going, it's very difficult that the digital transformation takes place, because it's not a matter of pure implementation of technologies. We know very well that it's really a cultural shift. So first is sitting with people, explain the target, but be, let's say, adaptable also to some changes in the idea that you have with respect to let's say the route that you have drafted, because people should understand that even though there is a scheme that the change management has to follow, but the real design is done by the employee that understands what is really needed, what can be done, what cannot be done. And of course, the additional two steps are asking the people along the path to give example, to be let's say to be witness of the journey they are doing, so that also the more reluctant can trust their colleagues and not the HR or the management, the change management, but understand that it really the colleague next door that is doing the same job is trying something which was unexpected, and measuring. These are the fundamental steps that I think are fundamental.
Thanks, Elisabetta. And I like the point, that you cannot be stringent and just follow, the same, because you have to change course as the requirement changes, technology changes, same is true for our culture change as well. Thank you so much. And Elgin, do you want to comment on this? Do you have to add anything?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that, Elisabetta. I totally concur with her remarks. I'd like to add that, awareness, training, and sponsorship are equally important. I found that individuals in our organization sometimes were not aware of a change initiative or a digital tool. And in many cases, if they were aware, they weren't aware of the benefits of that tool. And so, how does it impact their work? And so a strong communication plan is essential to achieving a successful change initiative. In addition, we need to look at enhancing the knowledge of the unique individual as it relates to that change initiative. How should employees utilize a tool? What are the different modules or features of the tool that will add value to the employee's everyday life? How do we make the employees' lives easier and better because of this tool? I think, getting the employees involved in the change, as Elisabetta mentioned, getting them involved in user acceptance testing. And that's key to adoption of a change initiative or a digital tool as well. And so not only do they enhance or upskill their abilities, but they can be change agents for you and communicate the benefits to their colleagues. And then, finally, leadership sponsorship is it really underpins everything for a change initiative. Identifying executive sponsors, project managers, department managers who will champion this change initiative are important because they can help manage resistance. So, getting the executives involved is absolutely paramount. Recently we had a leader in one of our areas that essentially became a change champion for one of our digital tools. And, he began by being just curious about our digital initiative. And so we gave him some information, some of the benefits, some of the value add for our digital initiative. And he then brought in some of the leaders from his region to really do a deep dive into that digital initiative. And as a result, they were able to ask some of their questions, and we were able to provide them with the answers to sort of overcome some of their concerns that they have regarding that initiative. So that's just a small example of how, you know, an executive or a leader can be a champion for your change and really ensure the success of that initiative.
Yes, if
Thanks,
I may
Elgin.
add one only thing to what Elgin said with respect to the leadership, I agree. It's paramount. Sometimes it's purely formal. Sometimes it's enough that it is formal, so it's even though it's not substantial. But I think that. It's important when you just have the formal leadership support that there is the let's say the witnesses of the economic benefit that you have thanks to implementing the technology and testified by people. Then the leadership support becomes effective. And that's the reality. I mean, it's if you measure then economically, then you get their support substantially. Sorry.
No, that's a good point. Yeah. So anyone else has any comment? Or I can move to my next question. So my next question is, you know, the technology implementation or implementing digital technologies. What's the biggest barrier? If you can, you know, elaborate more in terms of culture, how culture plays a role in implementing digital technologies, and how important that is. So Elgin or Inge, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I can start there, Norton. Thank you. You know, people, processes, and tools. You know, I came across this statistic from Korn Ferry recently, and it said that 63% of executives believe their digital transformation efforts were stalled because of difficulties in changing the organization's culture. So, you know, how do we change the organization's culture? Well, we touched on that a little bit with the essential steps to a change initiative. You know, changing culture is a change initiative. And so what do we do there? We need to, you know, increase or overcome the lack of awareness and desire to use digital tools. And how do we do that? Again, vocal leadership, identifying the economic benefit, identifying the benefits to the everyday work processes and tools that are used by the unique individual, overcoming some of their concerns. Again, change is unique to the individual, so we have to address their needs, as Elisabetta mentioned a moment ago. One of the other things in terms of processes that we need to look at is, you know, processes are a means for individuals to anchor to traditional ways of working. You know, many of our processes in our industry were created 15 or 20 years ago, and they were only updated because of maybe perhaps a government regulation or in a code or standard, or perhaps a client requirement, but they weren't necessarily updated because of changes in technology or innovation in our industry. And so, you know, when we look at our processes, we really need to look at embedding digitalization and innovation within those processes. And that can be a key to overcoming barriers. And then finally, tools. You know, the technology has matured to the point where we can use AI and machine learning and cloud computing and automation to really help facilitate shift to a new way or digital culture within our organizations. But sometimes tools and technologies are rushed to market, the market being our employees, prematurely, and they haven't gone through the proper testing or piloting phases. So we really need to take care and be cautious as we roll out these tools to make sure that we've identified the value proposition and the business case. And then once we do that, we test, and then we can implement properly. I believe people, processes, and tools must work in harmony in order to change the organization's culture.
Thank you, Elgin. India?
Yeah, thank you. So maybe I can add something on this. So the main barriers in my experience in the past were that people were afraid of technology, and they didn't understand that technology doesn't work without the people. So this is something that we learned a lot in the past, is that we have to really show the people that technology doesn't work without them. And technology doesn't mean that people will not be needed in future, but just the job description will change a little bit. So take away this fear is a big topic. And something else that I realized during my path as a Scrum Master by implementing new technology in our company was also that people are always tending to have the end in mind instead of looking into the problem and into the journey, talking to the customer, which might mean it's our customer, the Linde customer, or also the customer in-house. So you should ask them what they really need and what maybe the problem is or the challenge in their life. So it's not sufficient to say, okay, we need something with drones here. You have to look for the best business use case. So always keep the journey in mind, not only the end and the solution in the end. And I think culture-wise, for the transformation, it's very important to have, or to get more to the point, to get these error tolerance that we don't really have in the oil and gas business, because of course making a mistake when building a plant could harm a lot, but technology wise, if you're having an error tolerance, it could help a lot to fail fast and succeed slowly. This is my comment on this.
Thank you. And the point that I want to make here is that technology and culture has to go hand in hand to be successful. A lot of time, people focus more on technology and they don't understand, the culture plays a key role. Culture plays more than 50% role to be successful. So organization needs to understand that to be successful in digital transformation. So strategy and culture, just like I said, strategy and culture needs to be aligned to be successful. And what I can tell you is that you have to continue to measure your success, and you cannot measure your success. So if you cannot measure something, you cannot improve and you cannot be successful. So my next question is going to Julia. How do you measure successful digital transformation, and what matrices are providing useful gauging the progress of your digital transformation or digital transition? Julia, I know it's a very in-depth topic that you can talk forever on this.
Yeah, we could go in many sections, but I think first I just want to reinforce, I think, a bit what you said, that digitalization really, it's not a strategic goal in itself. It's something that enables your business strategy. So I think when you're thinking about measurement, it's a lot about saying, okay, our digitalization will help us achieve our strategic goals. So how are we measuring how we're achieving those is a great place to start. But like you say, also, digitalization is the balance of the methodology, the know-how from technology, and the business know-how. And you've got to balance all three of those things. But I think some of the things we've tried to measure, and I don't think you can get to KPIs yet, because actually they tend to need a benchmark, but it is about counting and observing, and there's some soft things, and then there's some really kind of more tangible, strict things that you can count. So the soft things are things like the way people speak about digitalization. What do they offer information, and do they talk about it with positive language, or do they talk about it with cynicism, with concern? And the more you get towards positive language, the better it is. So there's that cultural acceptance that comes in there, and that's just about being a listening organization. There's also how much nudging do we have to do? And every change practitioner will say, you start with a lot of nudging, and over time things become part of a DNA. And that DNA means that people do things habitually. So we have to think here about, are we nudging a lot? And is that nudging creating a reaction? So we're constructing a conversation and that's great. Do we get a response? How many interventions might we get on that response? Do we get hits on the things that are our response? So if we share something and we put it in a blog or a newsroom, or we have an info session, and this is where you can count, do people reply? Do they respond? How many viewers do you get on things? And then some of the cultural measures that help you go, okay, is what we're doing getting traction? And then there's another bit that says how much effort do people go to tell their story. So are they starting to volunteer and share? Do they come and say, hey, we've been doing a really interesting piece of work and we want to talk about it. Can you help us talk about it? Or that's interesting, we've done something similar. And that again becomes a bit of a tipping point. So measure your outcomes based on your business strategy and monitor whether the activities you're undertaking are getting engagement and people are changing the dialogue. And the less you have to push and the more you get people telling you things, the more successful your story is, I think.
Thanks, Julia. And I just want to add, first a couple points. And so successful digital transformation definitely need the culture change. And some of the attributes of the culture change, two I want to highlight is the growth mindset and fail fast. So have a culture of growth mindset. If people are coming to you and asking, they want to learn new things and they wanted to improve this thing, and these are the things that they can do, and experiment with it. If you see that across the organization and not having someone telling them to do, and it's like an autopilot. If the organization start working together in that kind of environment, then that's a good sign that whatever the implementation culture change that has been deployed or initiated is working, and people are really doing what they're supposed to do. Anyone else? Any comment? Okay, so let's go to the next area, which we are talking about.
Sorry, I was on mute. Nordine, I was on mute. Sorry. May I?
Oh, okay. Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. No, I was mentioning that I like very much the metaphor you used as autopilot, and the fact that. I agree with. I definitely agree with Julia. What she was saying about trying to arrive to the point where digital indeed it becomes part of the DNA. So the very big point is now we are talking since a few years about digital and digital transformation, but the real goal of the digital transformation is that in few years' time we don't talk any longer about digital because it's part of our daily activity, and that's really the challenge. So if we manage as change manager to try as much as possible to find a kind of spontaneous behavior from the employees that realize that we have done what we wanted to achieve, but that's really the point. I mean, digital is an enabler, but people should realize and should understand that it should be a part of their daily activity, something like they have to digest it, and it becomes a part of their body.
Thanks, Elisabetta. So my next question is now focus on talent. In an organization, we have experienced workforce, and then we are also bringing in new talent with new skills. So implementing a digital strategy, please, David, can you share your insight into nurturing talent while managing an experienced workforce as well?
Sure, Nordin. Thank you. I think the main challenge in this topic is for sure to put them to work together. Okay, because maybe we can talk about the age, the difference of the age between one generation or another. But I think the main topic here is the kind of skills maybe usually the young used to bring to the organization and the senior used to have after years in the industry. For us, what we are trying to do is put them work together. And we do that when we are staffing different teams to run or to build different products. We are adding people from digital unit who used to have skills more related with artificial intelligence, agile methodologies, big data, etc. But for sure mixed with the senior talent who used to be embedded in the business units. We talk about we talk a lot about the technology is not working without people, and I think this is the key point, because young talent used to try to bring to the organization these new methodologies or new tools, but if they don't have the expertise, if they don't have the experience or the knowledge about how to apply these techniques, or how are the big problems of the industry, or maybe on a plant or on any process in which we can take advantage of these techniques, the new talent won't achieve anything by themselves. In the other hand, the senior talent or the usual skills we have at the Downstream business, as you indicate before, more of the processes are invented maybe 20, 30, 40 or 50 years ago, and they need to be more efficient, and the fastest way to take advantage or to be more efficient is applying these techniques. So in our opinion, what we are trying to do is to put them together and to create mixed teams, trying to balance these new skills with the senior talent, and working together to create the products to make the downstream business and the oil and gas business more efficient.
Thanks, David. And to add to that, what I would say is the collaboration is key. Collaboration. The two attributes that I would highlight here is a collaboration and sharing knowledge, which is the key for digital transformation. As David said, the seniors or the experienced workforce has a lot of experience about the product, how the processes work, who to connect within the organization, and they add a lot of value to the organization. So if they merge, this collaboration happens between the experienced workforce and the new talent, which has technology knowledge, new technology knowledge. If you merge those together, then it becomes a dynamite. It will really, explode your digital transformation journey. Thanks, David. Anyone else wants to add anything? Okay. So my next question is, again, we're talking about the talent here. So the capabilities what are the capabilities that people need to develop? You can talk about the capabilities, the technology capability, as well as the culture and the mindset and, all those kind of things, part of that in this changing environment, because like we said, we live in an environment which is changing every day. New technology is coming in, the requirements are changing very quickly, and everybody knows, we are going through unprecedented time of pandemic. In very short period of time, people had to change their business model and everything. So how do you navigate, from the, if I can hear from our panelists on the culture's perspective, how do you navigate through this changing environment? Julia or Inge Wild, you want to share your experience?
Yeah.
Julia, you may go first.
Thanks. I'm happy to jump in. The list is endless. And when we built a digital academy at OMV, we just had a phenomenal amount of things that we put in here. And actually, it depends is one of the things. But there is some core stuff that we said, well, actually, everybody needs to have a flavor of this. And it's at its very basic thing where I think everyone in the world is saying, how can I be a good digital citizen, be safe, use the internet, understand the risks that are involved? These are very core basic things. Use my mobile phone, use my laptop, and interact with the world in a way that's not going to put myself or other people at risk. That's a basic thing. And it combines in terms of being able to use the technology just with being a human being. And with that comes behaviors that are really important, like empathy, like the ability to adapt and be responsive, and focus quite a lot on what an outcome might be and a purpose might be, rather than this is the checklist and this is the procedure that I might follow. And I think whilst that still exists, it's being able to say, well, I used to do it like this, but actually I've had to unlearn what it is that I did because the technology is having a different influence on how I work. And now I must be able to say, I can judge whether what I'm doing is going to be the right thing or not. So that awareness as well matters, that ability to scan your horizon. And I think read signals, read what's going on beyond you, as well as be able to interpret facts, are some of the cultural things that matter. Also being able to work with incredible accountability. So when we think about digital ways of working, we put groups of people together often, and especially if you're using agile techniques, and we ask that group of people to be accountable for an outcome and manage their stakeholder expectations, but not always escalate things. So that ability to be accountable for your work and for the decisions that you make is an important capability that people need to have and adapt to. So be able to use good information to make decisions. And then, of course, there are some other things that exist that are often special to jobs, but be a data citizen, use data, source, connect, be able to read data, use data trends, be able to create content that people want to read and want to share and want to understand, I think is important, because in this world, everybody is a communicator, and you've got to be able to communicate openly and engagingly, not just in a meeting on a one-to-one basis, but using video, using the written word, using a podcast, because we connect with more people that way and we're more global that way. So I think there's some of the key kind of capabilities that we need to help people navigate along this journey. I'm sure Inge has some additional ones that she'd want to add.
Yeah, thanks, Julia. This was already a lot of things. And as you said, the list is very, very long, what the people really need. I love that you mentioned also the empathy, because this is really underestimated sometimes, but very important. And also the trust into the company, that if you embrace the change, that you still will be able to be successful. And what I wrote down also was that I think the focus is more going to soft skills right now, because hard skills are outdated so soon nowadays. So soft skills like curiosity or flexibility and the empathy that we mentioned twice already will make the change. So be open-minded and appreciate change and embrace it as well, but have it based on trust. This will be a good mixture, I think.
Thanks. So 2 points that I want to mention here is the organization has to change, and the culture point of view is the sharing and learning, because because technology is changing, the culture of learning new things and sharing new things plays a key role. So my next question is, as you know, that to be successful in your digital journey, an organization are changing, technology is changing, which requires reskilling and reshaping the current workforce to be prepared for the digital transformation. And the aspect that we need to talk about here is, how do you motivate people? So the people are really reskilling, continue to reskill and improve, the skill set of the current workforce. How employee recognition play a role in accelerating the culture change? So Elisabetta, David, do you guys want to share your thoughts on that?
Yes, I think we in a way we touched already the point, because I think that all what we have been hearing up to now is part of it. But the very important part is really that there is this. I agree with distrust with respect to understanding that the change that is required is not for the company only, but it's also for the employee themselves, because the what is going to change is their daily activity. Every day means that they realize that the company will have a benefit, but the first benefit in the first row is that their daily activity, so the activity that every day everybody has to do, may have a very big impact in terms of working better, working safer, sparing time, collaborating in a different way. So in order to motivate the people, I think it's really the fact of showing that what they say plays a role. So having the capability of, as we said earlier, of being so flexible as an organization, and that's not easy, being so flexible to accommodate some needs of the employees that will be required to show that they are listened, you care about them, and also let them understand that the change is not only for them, but it requires also a change in the organization. And I think that the energy companies are not that ready, even though we talk a lot about that, but there are still some resistance from an organizational point of view. But the employees should see that also in the way the work is organized by the company, there's a change. So you can't ask people to change their behavior, but then you put their innovative thoughts into the traditional way of working or traditional path doesn't fit. I mean, they have to understand that the change is really for everybody, for them and for the organization. And the involvement is really trying to ask to have a storytelling from them, to have an interview, to appear more than in the past on the in the communication tool that the company has. I mean, giving voice to people. That is, for me, it's fundamental. And in that case, you see that really they manage in turning their approach into a value for them and for the company.
Yeah, and I can add, if employees or the workforce knows what's in it for them, then they will be motivated. If they recognize the value that they're going to gain out of helping the organization move or to successfully transform, definitely, they will be motivated and they will strive, to be successful as an organization. David, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I fully agree with both of you, but I would like to add another different point in terms of to be successful through the recognition of the employees. We need to create something big, something appealing for the people at the point that the people say, okay, I would like to be part of that. No, so once you create something big, something aspirational, you can try to do it through visible elements like marketing elements, create an identity, and it's not only a visible element. You need as well to create, for example, different experience, not to give a fresh experience to the people, and then allow the people to be part of it. For example, here we always are breaking the status quo. We are, for example, organizing open spaces in which every Friday more than 200 or 300 people attend, and it's not only talking about technical issues about the data lakes or artificial intelligence or whatever. We are talking about, for example, how applied intelligence or how the data could help, for example, to detect detect cancer in a previous stage, or to improve every aspect of their life. No, because we need to create the interest of the people, and once they are aware that this is good not only for the company, it's good for the humans, you need to give them the opportunity to take part. For example, we create, maybe we talked before about that, but we create a specific training program in which at the end of the program, the people who maybe has different roles are applying in a specific project, a real project defined by themselves, all what they learn in the stages, previous stages, and they are solving by themselves real problems that they were facing for years. So it's create big things and allow them creating the spaces for the people to be part of it.
David, in that respect, I may add also, I like very much what you said, and I would add also that other initiatives that are very much appreciated are, for example, the hackathon. Which is something that really involves people that don't have any clue about technology, and they become super expert because they understand that they can create themselves. So as some energizing breakfast or digital coffees, it depends on how the company wants to label it. But where, for example, you present, for example, films, and you show which kind of technologies is underneath, so that people understand that the technology is by definition already in their daily life, and it's just a matter of transforming that into their daily activity at work. So it's
Thanks, Elisabetta. Anyone else has any comment?
Yeah, I'll add to that. I think both David and Elisabetta touched on, highlighting the correct behaviors that lead to the desired outcomes for the individual as well as the organization. I think that's key. They also touched on the like a feedback mechanism. That's another way to recognize employees. We want to hear from them. We want to know what they are thinking about their current state, the current state of the organization, the current state of their department, and how digital or innovation or how digital culture plays a role in that. And then finally, I'd like to add that, if we have a platform for innovation where employees can share their ideas, like an idea sharing platform. That's one of the things we started within our group late last year, or actually we continued. But as David mentioned, we created a movement around this innovation platform so employees can share their ideas and comment and vote on others' ideas. So that's another way to recognize employees as well.
Thanks, Elgin. So Elgin, I have a next question for you, directed at you, and then Elisabetta, you can comment as well. So following up on, we talked about the people and process. So how does people and process dictates the way changes are navigated? If you're implementing any changes, how does that people process plays a role there? Can you give an example if you have within your company, how you're doing it?
Sure. So, great question. People are obviously at the core of everything we do. So people execute the established processes, and those companies that do it well are able to create repeatable processes or a competitive advantage. And so one of the things that I like to do when creating a change management plan, I work with our product owners, and I have them look at current state versus future state. So current state is the existing process. And so that existing process may be 10 steps, for example. So I challenge the product owners and I say, okay, are you going to digitize one activity, or are you going to replace 3 steps in this process with this new tool, or are you going to automate the entire process? So communicating effectively that to our stakeholders is equally important with respect to the actual tool, because that can help alleviate some of the concerns with total disruption. As we talked about earlier, you have different generations where the younger generation may be more adept and aware and ready to use a tool, but the older generation may not. So the balance there is really communicating what's changing and what's not. And when you talk about comparing the current state versus future state, it's easier for an individual to transition from current to future state if you can tell them exactly what is changing. And so, once you do that for an initiative or a digital tool, right, we need to then update our organizational processes, policies, and procedures accordingly so that, the change initiative aligns with the organization's vision and goal moving forward. And finally, one last point there, if once you change the organization's processes and once you identify the current and future state, it's easy to, again, make that transition. And that way you can sort of overcome the employee's need or longing to revert back to a traditional way of working. I call it anchoring to traditional norms. And so we want them to move away from that anchoring state, and identifying current state versus future state can help with that.
So to add to that, Elgin, so human nature is, people don't want to change. They have been doing this forever and things are working. They say, I've been doing it for 20 years and it has always worked, so why change? How do you overcome that kind of resistance?
Yeah, so what I typically try to share with those that are laggards or late majorities in our industry is I really try to say, hey, we're not trying to totally change the way you work in many cases. Really, we just want to tweak it just a little to add an additional level of efficiency to your work, and we want to execute better. Our clients are asking for digitalization in their ITT, so we have to really establish that something in their core where the why. Right? The why and why we're doing it, that's important in order to convince those individuals that change is necessary. You're absolutely right. There are going to be those individuals that will be resistant. But if we can get some of the innovators and the early majority on that Rogers adopter type curve to sort of help facilitate the change, it'll be easier to getting those laggards and late majority to join the initiative.
Thanks, Elgin. Elisabetta?
I would add that I would try to convince the reluctant with a scientific approach, which has not so much to do with change management, but I would really demonstrate the benefit obtained thanks to the change. So I would demonstrate how it was, as Elgin was mentioning, how it was earlier and how it's now, thanks to having implemented the technology and the benefit that is not only an economic benefit, but it's also, let's say, really a time benefit, which in our industry is, of course, very expensive. So saving, if you take an example of, for example, the subsurface, if you show to the reluctant that if you manage in parallelizing the processes instead of having them in sequence, starting from exploration to drilling, for example, and that's only thanks to technology, you show that you have cut the let's say the supply, the usual way of working. You have manage in having the collaboration of people, having people more involved, having more ideas, and having your system that can let's say move the algorithms and obtain all the additional results that the technology can give you, but really as a scientific demonstration, added up with the example of people. So the fact that it's not the change manager that is saying you have saved X million of dollars thanks to the reduction in time in facing that project, but also having their own people that show the benefit to them. So that's an example of it is the use of data. The fact that very often data we have in a huge amount and are not properly exploited, or not always, and you can definitely demonstrate to the reluctant that you can really arrive to a change in the business model if you correctly exploit the data. A scientific demonstration is destroying also the reluctant, in my view.
Yeah, so from the culture side, the organization culture, and I 100% agree with you what you said, Elisabetta, the scientific example. So I would say a data-driven organization, or data-driven organization, they don't just go with the word, but there's a data behind it to demonstrate the value that it has generated, and that is a really key driver for successful changes. Anyone else has any comment before I go to the next question?
I would like, Nordin, only to add that I fully agree with Elisabetta, but I would like to add that maybe it's an important thing not to dedicate specific efforts to the reluctant. I think it's better to work for the positive people who is maybe thinking, or who is on your boat on this through the different actions you run. If after some actions still have reluctant people, because always reluctant people will exist, I think the best way is to try to inform them, but not to run specific actions, and try to let them to be convinced by the rest of the organization. And you can do that creating quick wins, running a very, very specific financial tracking, and having a very, very good sponsor. But the resume is that not investing a lot of efforts in the reluctant people, because maybe you are wasting your specific resources or time.
Thanks, David. Anyone else?
Yeah, I think I had a thought on that as well, actually, which is connected with that feeling of vulnerability that people have when there's a dark art surrounding technology. And I think a lot of people assume that they're going to have to be a part of the dark art in order to be able to adapt. And somehow it's often about demystifying that, to be able to say, well, you interact with technology every day as a consumer, and you do that confidently. And let's explain how you do it as a consumer, and then let's talk to you about what that means in a work context, and then maybe you'll feel more comfortable with it, is perhaps an opportunity or a way of approaching it in organizations. So yeah, it just inspired that thought in me.
Point, and I'm gonna go to Julia again, but the question is, the digital transformation is not about one person, and it's not about organization working in silos. It's about working as a holistic one organization. Everybody is motivated and working towards a goal. Just like I mentioned, the whole organization has to move from point A to point B. So employees or the workforce plays a key role, and it's our responsibility to make sure that our workforce is well equipped to manage the change or accelerate the pace of digital transformation. Okay, so Julia, do you want to elaborate more on that? How do you feel your workforce is successfully, sufficiently well equipped?
Well, I think it depends what you mean by well equipped, huh? Because it can mean so many different things. It's a bit about competence. It's a bit about, do I have the tools? It's a bit about, do I have the self-belief? Many, many things. So do I think our workforce is generally well equipped? Probably, because the tools are available. And in a lot of cases, the interests exist. Because like I said just a few moments ago, people interact and use technology to make their lives easier every day. What I think we are all less equipped as humans to do is unlearn something we've got really good at. And the most disruptive thing about the pace and the change that we're experiencing now is we break rules, whether it's we're doing this project in a different way or we're innovating in a different way. Or actually, I've gone to a meeting and people have used language that I just don't understand because it's the dark art of technology sometimes. And that creates this sense of vulnerability and sometimes frustration in us. And it's that bit where I think we aren't always equipped culturally to make that transition. So I think we have to accept and create that psychological safety is a fundamental part of equipping people as well, and that we have to change conversations to be more exploratory and ask good coaching questions that help people think, what's next? What could I do differently? Not where did I go wrong, or what's going wrong, or what should I have done? And that's, I think, where we get some reward in terms of managing pace. Because if you're encouraging and you're supportive of where you're going in the future and you feel connected in that, actually, I think people feel a lot more inspired. And that confidence that we've talked about it grows. It's essential.
It's great. So we are running out of time. I have a lot of questions, but I'm running out of time. But one question I want to cover here, we talked about partnership. We have partnership, internal partnership. We talked about partnership or sharing knowledge between the experienced workforce and the people who just came into an organization with a lot of technical or technology knowledge. So let's talk about what do you think about partnership outside the organization? What digital partnership with external companies or startups or academia, how does that benefit in companies in accelerating their digital transformation journey? And what culture, what organization culture plays a key role in this? Inge, you want to comment on this?
Yeah, so we heard today already collaboration is the key, and for us, we really live this as well in the digitalization team. So for us, it's very important to have these partnerships, especially with startups that are having something that we don't have within the company. So my experience is that we're usually pairing up with externals that are champions and experts in a specific field where we didn't dig in deeper yet. So what we have there is as a good result is the expertise, but also we will get the external resources and also this fresh view into our business, because what we all do is in our company and probably also in yours, it's usually that or it's completely normal that people are staying for a long time within the business, so they get some kind of blind sometimes as well. So for us, next to expertise and resources, also the fresh view helps a lot, and we learn a lot from especially from the startups about the methods that they're using, being more agile, being very flexible in what they're doing. We adopt very often also the tools that they are using, like the communication and collaboration tools, but also the methods. So for us, it's a long learning journey, and we love to work together with externals and pair up and collaborate with them, because we see that this speeds up the process, and then we internally, in my experience, it's sometimes better to fill in the gaps that the externals do not have, but go on the usual way and benefit from their expertise.
Thanks, Gia. With that, we conclude our panel discussion, and I want to thank all our panelists for their expert advice and knowledge sharing. And I want to thank all the audience for participating, and I hope this was helpful and you learn a lot after this panel discussion. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.